Hello everyone. Paddington 2, Chapter 16. The Browns have a master plan. Over in Portobello Prison, Paddington's new friends were coming up with a plan of their own. Paddington was fast asleep in his cell when he was awoken by a loud metallic clang. He sat up and blinked. "What's that?" he said, in a voice bleary with sleep. Suddenly, Knuckles' voice rang along the pipe on the wall. "Paddington! Paddington!" Knuckles called urgently. Paddington opened the vent so he could hear better. "What's up?" he asked. "Oh, good, you're awake. Got a proposition for you, kid," said Knuckles. "Me and the boys have been talking. It seems to us that if you're going to clear your name, you're going to need help." Fib's voice joined in. "The Browns may mean well, but—" Spoon turned up the thread and took up the thread. "It takes a thief to catch a thief." Knuckles agreed. "If the three of us were to get out of here," he went on, "we could hit the streets together and we'd soon find him." Paddington was horrified. "You're not talking about escape?" "We certainly are," said Knuckles, "and we've got a plan, but it's a four-man job, and we need your help. What do you say?" Paddington felt sorely tempted. He had well and truly had enough of his cell, but escaping, he just wasn't sure about that. When it came to it, he just wasn't that kind of bear. "It's very kind of you, Knuckles," he said, "but I don't think Aunt Lucy would like the idea of me breaking out of prison." "But you're innocent," Knuckles reminded him. "I know, but you're not," said Paddington. "You robbed a bank." "That's not fair," said Knuckles. "I did leave an IOU, mate. Note. And I'm a locksmith by trade," said Spoon. "I just so happened to be practising at the night on the jewellery shops." "And I've always wanted to fly an aeroplane," said Fibs. "Is that a crime?" "It is if you steal it," said Paddington. "Look, I know you all mean well, but the Browns will take me home in the end. You'll see." There was a pause, and Paddington thought the others had gone. Then Knuckles said quietly, "You may not want to hear this, kid, but sooner or later the Browns will give up on you." Paddington felt his stomach churn as he listened to the other prisoners back Knuckles up. "When they don't find that thief," said Fibs, "they'll start to question your story." "Then they'll miss one visit, then two," said Spoon. "And before you know it," finished Knuckles, "they'll have abandoned you altogether." Paddington was affronted by this. "You're wrong," he said. "You're all wrong. The Browns aren't like that. They'll come tomorrow and they'll have good news. You'll see." He closed the vent very firmly, but as he tried to get back to sleep, he couldn't get Knuckles' words out of his head. Paddington needn't have worried. Ever since Mrs. Brown had come back from Phoenix's house, she and the children had been very busy plotting with Mrs. Bird. They felt sure they had come up with a master plan that would catch the devious actor red-handed and allow Paddington to finally come home to his family. The first part of the plan had Judy and Jonathan travelling across London to the office of Flick Fanshawe, Phoenix Bouchon's agent. They rushed up to the door of Flick's office and pressed the buzzer next to her name. Judy leaned in and spoke into the intercom. "Good morning," she said. "This is Judy Brown from the Portobello Express. I have an appointment." The door clicked open and Judy and Jonathan climbed the stairs to Flick's office, and they knocked on the door. "Come in," called a voice. Judy went in first, and the office was a large room with theatre posters and photographs of actors up the walls. Flick herself sat behind an enormous desk. She stood up when the children came in and held out a well-manicured hand. Flick flashed her white teeth with a dazzling smile. "What's this for, darlings? A school newspaper, you say?" "That's right," said Judy. Jonathan put a dictaphone on the desk and pressed record while Julie explained. "We're doing a career profile," Julie said. "We thought an interview with the agent of the Phoenix Bouchman would be really interesting. Oh, and we brought these with us, by the way," she said, offering Flick a basket of Chelsea buns, "as a thank you for seeing us at such short notice." "Oh, lovely," said Flick. She took one. "I'm sure an interview with me would be just the thing your little newspaper would need. Inspiring the kiddies, no doubt. Right, I've got 2 minutes, so we'd better make it snappy," she said, and bit into the bun. Nice buns, by the way." Not wanting to waste a moment, Jonathan jumped in with a question. "When can we expect to see Mr. Bouchman back on stage?" "Phoenix," Flick said, with a mouthful of crumbs. "I wouldn't hold your breath there, darling. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic actor, but he's got one tinsy-wincy problem, which is that he won't work with other actors. Thinks that they dilute his talent. She broke off to check the time on a very expensive watch. Oh, look, I must scoot, she cried. We're having lunch with a big Broadway producer. She finished off the Chelsea bun and leapt from her chair. A Broadway producer? That sounds exciting, said Judy. She was desperate to try to delay the agent from leaving right away. Where are you going? Where do you think? Where do all the big meetings happen? The Ritz, darling, said Flick, taking another bun. She said, munching away. Really nice buns. Got to fly. Bye, she called out over her shoulder. Judy and Jonathan exchanged a devious smile, and Jonathan pressed stop on the dictaphone. Did you get everything we need? Judy asked. I think so, said Jonathan. I hope Mum's managed to carry out her part of the plan. Mrs. Brown was indeed doing her bit back at Windsor Gardens. She had Mrs. Bird to help her too. To any passer-by it would seem that Mrs. Bird was having an innocent chat with the postman. In reality, however, she was causing a diversion so Mrs. Brown could carry out her plan unnoticed. Good morning, Marlon. Good morning, Mrs. B. How's Paddinton doing? The postman asked. Oh, he's a tough wee bear, said Mrs. Bird. She kept the postman chatting while Mrs. Brown took advantage of the diversion to sneak round to the side of the van with a large hamper from Barkridge's. She quickly checked around to make sure the coast was clear, then climbed inside the hamper. Just as the postman finished his chat with Mrs. Bird, Mrs. Brown pulled the lid down so she was completely hidden. Better get on, said the postman, waving goodbye to Mrs. Bird. He walked round to the side of his van and spotted the hamper. Who's this for, then? He asked himself, reading the address. Mr. Boochman. Oh, OK, off we go. Oh, phew, it's heavy, he muttered as he lifted it. Heaving the hamper onto the trolley, the postman wheeled it round to Phoenix's door and rang the bell. Mrs. Bird was spying from the phone box. She waited as Phoenix opened the door, looked delightedly at the hamper, then took it safely inside the house. Then quickly, checking to make sure no one was watching her, Mrs. Bird picked up the receiver and dialed. In a different phone box on the other side of town, Judy and Jonathan were waiting too, waiting for Mrs. Bird to call them. As soon as the phone rang, Judy answered it. Jonathan squeezed in alongside his sister so he could hear what Mrs. Bird had to say. The parcel has been delivered, said Mrs. Bird in a cryptic tone. I repeat, the parcel has been delivered. Judy said nothing in response. She simply replaced the receiver and then went to dial a new number. Inside Phoenix's house, he was settling down to open the hamper. Oh, this is exciting, he said to himself. I wonder if this is from a fan. He was stopped from opening it fully, however, by the phone ringing. Oh, a hamper and a phone call in one morning? Popular little me, he thrilled as he went to answer. Hello, he said. Phoenix Boochman, star of the stage and screen. Phoenix! Flick, is that you? Phoenix asked. It's not every day I hear from my agent. He sounded grumpy. I hope it's good news. The voice on the other end cut in. I've only got 2 minutes, so we'd better make it snappy. It was Flick's voice, but it wasn't really her. It was the recording that Jonathan had made when he and Judy were in Flick's office earlier. OK, said Phoenix, believing it to be the agent herself, but it better be good. You haven't got me any work apart from that dreadful dog food commercial for years. We're having a little lunch with a big Broadway producer, said his agent's voice. Phoenix's mood changed dramatically. He gasped with delight. That's wonderful. Where shall I meet you? Where do all the big meetings happen? The Ritz, darling. I'm on my way, Phoenix cried. He was about to take the receiver away from his ear when he heard Flick's voice say, Nice buns, by the way. I beg your pardon, said Phoenix. Back in the phone box, Judy and Jonathan looked at each other aghast. Had they given the game away? Really nice buns, Flick's voice said. Well, thank you very much, said Phoenix, plainly flattered. Judy and Jonathan let out a breath as they'd been holding and looked hugely relieved. I think we've got away with it, Judy whispered, and she replaced the receiver. Phoenix put his phone down and checked out his view in the mirror. Nice buns, eh? Well, I certainly never had any complaints about Mr. and Mrs. Bottycheek, he said, looking at his bum in his reflection. Then with a laugh he ran out to what he thought was a very important appointment at the Ritz.